Hi, my name is Joe Ward and I'm running for mayor. In the CBRM mayoral race, everyone wants to know not only what we'll do for the municipality, but why we think we can do it. And that's a great question. So now, before you start believing the media that there are just two frontrunners, this dark horse candidate has something to tell you. Something I have to confess about myself and Premier Tim Houston. Before I tell you, let me just say that a relationship with Tim Houston can be difficult to keep on track if he loses his confidence in you. But as we saw when he recruited Jeff McClellan in a role to support his government, the objective-minded Tim Houston from the business world is not overtaken completely by the Houston that has to play a political role for a party. The souring of the relationship with the CBRM on Bill 340, emergency declarations, and highway policing was tense for Mayor McDougall Merrill and the current council. And bridges were burned in the leadership race when Cecil Clark, who was then our mayor, but trying to leave to become the leader of the NSPC party, created deep wounds that work against any future relationship. But back in 2018, I personally met with Tim Houston in Sydney, and he requested that I join the meeting with some colleagues. And during that meeting, he revealed that he decided to double the provincial equalization grant, which would equate to about $15 million more for the CBRM. And he called it an act of good faith until we could redo our service exchange agreement. And that's basically what eventually became Bill 340. Now, when elected, he gave us the $15 million, but it was then quickly replaced by Bill 340. And the CBRM pointed out issues with the funding strategy after a few years. And I did too. But it was the first time in a very long time that new resources flowed into the CBRM, and were it not for a poorly managed tax break with savings for Walmart instead of just homeowners, we might have been able to keep that funding. Now, as an equalization supporter, I was happy to see more funds, even if it wasn't the full ask, those funds making their way to the CBRM. But during that meeting, I interjected in the conversation, mostly led by Tim, and I asked, why did you suddenly come around on this issue when nobody else had really done so before? And he looked at me and he told me, to be honest, it was your letter. Okay, give me a moment here. It's not lost on me whatsoever that smart politicians are gifted at flattery. But as you're going to see from my message to Tim, posted to accompany this video wherever you're watching it, you can see exactly what I wrote Houston and why it is that he requested me to join that meeting. At the end of the day, what I'd asked for in March of 2018, over 6 years ago, was for him to double the equalization grant to $64 million. Then 6 months after my letter, Houston revealed his commitment to doubling the equalization grant during his leadership debate, and Clark responded telling him he had no economic plan and was throwing away money. Now, as we know, Houston won the NSPC leadership, and then he won the election, and he became premier. And not too long afterward, he sent the $15 million more to the CBRM. You see, some of you may have watched enough reality TV that you've heard about love languages, how folks communicate in relationships in different styles, or how we clash, or how we get along if we start speaking one another's language. Well, in the business world, the language used is about compelling plans that are justified and include something for everyone. My letter to Houston was compelling because I was able to speak Tim Houston's language. I wasn't just telling him about a problem that would be his fault when he became premier. I was telling him how to verify the problem and then how to start alleviating it. And do you know how to alleviate some of the issues of a municipality like the CBRM with insufficient funding? Well, you make sure they receive or generate more resources. But most importantly, I made an ask. I asked for doubling of the equalization grant. But I made damn sure that I remembered that negotiation has more than one party who wants to achieve something. So I framed my request and my argument about why it was necessary also in terms of why it met some of the objectives of Houston himself, who was then very much like me right now, pursuing an important role where the media sometimes suggested Clark was the front runner. But here we are now and we need a new deal. And who are we going to trust to make the deal with the premier in power? The candidate who scolded him for offering us something more? Or the dark horse candidate who is telling you this now only because you want to know why the plans I'm sharing can be achieved? I had a reason to celebrate it before. I didn't have a reason to go on about it before. Now, we can achieve a better deal because I make every effort in the world to make sure I'm negotiating while understanding the needs of the other party as well. I know that stating a problem is just pushing a hot potato onto someone's lap, but offering a solution with options and explaining the mechanisms that make it work, that's the way to achieve something. I'm not worried about the relationships Houston holds with others. For as long as he's premier, I know that we can sit at a table and speak the same language. And we can reason out a deal that will work for us. We can solve property taxes and we can solve our housing crisis. And I have ideas on how we can do that very quickly, which is exactly what we need, and without demanding too much from the provincial budget. Please read the letter that I've shared with this video. And if you want someone that can make the case to get more for the CBRM, then please cast your vote for me on October 19th. I'll call Tim on October 20th and request our next meeting. My name is Joe Ward, and I'm a candidate for mayor in the CBRM.